So I'm going straight into the idea of self-employment with no real idea of how to be self-employed. So that's kind of where it started. And somehow, some way, I'm still here. So I've been very much learning as I do. I flew from Moscow to Vladivostok, and you fly for 8 hours, you cross 11 time zones, and you land in Russia. And you don't cross an ocean. You go through this journey and you realize that you have a set of skills that you didn't have before because you've had to develop them. This dark desire to surrender to the void. Abandon yourself to feel worthless and unbound by life or time.
Hello and welcome to Get a Shift Done podcast, all about career change and career transition. This week, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome a good friend of mine, James Brown, and his company is called James Brown Voice. James, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome along.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much for having me. Very pleased to be here.
I look forward to hearing all about your career and what you've done. For everyone that's listening and or watching, can you just share with us where it all started and what do we need to know about where you've been to get to where you are today?
So I've had a slightly roundabout way to kind of owning my own business to being self-employed. I started off 20 odd years ago in London doing management consultancy. It was simply as a way because I had no idea what I wanted to do after I graduated. So opened up the Times Graduate Top 100 places to work. Started at A. There was a place called Accenture. I applied to Accenture, somehow got into Accenture. I still have no idea how that happened. But that turned out to be not a great fit for me. So I went back to college and I did a postgraduate in broadcast journalism. And I then had 14 years working as a news reporter and documentary maker, actually over in Russia, which was not the intended place to go at all. But there was a chance in 2005 when I graduated, which was to either go and do your stint in local radio and perhaps work your way up through the radio ranks before getting to TV. But then there was this new company that was opening up in Moscow that was back then called Russia Today. Possibly least said about Russia Today, the better. But at that point, it was very much still the Wild East. It was very exciting. About 100 of us went over there and started up or helped start up this new channel, so I spent a long time over there. I moved into documentaries when it was very clear about what direction the news was taking, and I didn't want to really be drawn into that side of the news. But the documentary channel was, fortunately, at least to begin with, was pretty free. It wasn't really controlled in what you had to say. I was able to travel around the country, meet a lot of people, find out a lot of interesting stories, and especially when you're from the UK, the sheer size of a country like Russia is amazing. It's almost incomprehensibly vast, really. Would tell the little tale of the fact that one of my very first assignments, I flew from Moscow to Vladivostok, and you fly for 8 hours, you cross 11 time zones, and you land in Russia. And you don't cross an ocean. It just if you think about flying from London, where that would take you potentially, but you land in the same country. So that's the sort of size, and you can imagine sort of what a huge cultural diversity there is in that place. And it was fascinating. It's where I met my wife, where I had my first child. And then I left there in 2019. My mother had passed away the year before. There were signs at that point that my father was also going through, sadly got cancer. But also we noticed that he was having memory issues, and then that followed an Alzheimer's diagnosis. So my initial plan, which was to come back to London, check in with him here in Torquay, and navigate my way through the documentary world here in the UK in TV production. Then it was clear that Dad needed more help, and that combined also with COVID. So I picked the best time to attempt to get into television in the UK, or possibly anywhere in recorded history, I would say, because it just stopped. There was no work. It died completely. So at that point, I took a job with the Associated Press. So I was basically reporting on stories from all over the world, which were being sent out to various different customers who buy the news from the journalists at the AP and use that to make the basis of their own news programs around the world. It was great, got me out through a hole, but it was exchanging time for money. It was work I'd been doing 14 years earlier. It wasn't going to be sustainable. I moved back down to Devon full time. At that point, it was just before my wife and my son were still in Moscow. So it was like, well, what do we do now? I'd been doing voiceover. That took a long time to get to that, didn't it? I'd been doing voiceover for when I was in Russia as very much a side gig. I'd occasionally get asked to do the odd commercial, or I'd do the odd piece of explainer work or educational work for people, for instance, trying to learn English, and they would want an English voiceover. At that point, I was going into studios all the time to record. That work was getting sent off, and rather stupidly, I'll be honest, I was also exchanging time for money and getting paid a flat fee to do that. Because again, it wasn't something that I had any further thoughts apart from, I'll go in and I'll do that. And I'll continue on with the documentary work. But during lockdown, I started to look into the possibility of, first of all, okay, well, I'm in Devon, bless Devon. It's a nice place to be. It is not a great place for somebody with a media background. You would probably have to move. And it was also clear that there were very few jobs, that the jobs that there were very underpaid. And I needed to think about how I was going to navigate that. So I took some voiceover courses, went on to a site called Gravy for the Brain, which was a great big resource of information about how one becomes a professional voiceover and all the different aspects of voiceover that there are out there, ranging from commercials that you might hear when you're about to click onto the YouTube video that you want to hear, or of course on your TV, or at this point you've got the Jet2 holiday girl everywhere who is having an absolutely fabulous time about that. The fact that that's gone viral. She's done great.
Hasn't it ever?
Yeah. And that's, would be something from what you would call just a happy, come on, we're going away, sort of happy, chirpy, conversational type of ad that's just ended up boosting her profile enormously all around the world, and not just in the UK, which for a reasonably localized UK airline, you'd be surprised if it went any further than that. But that's had an enormous effect for her. Long story short, I then set up in the end of 2021 James Brown Voice. So we thought I was still working for the Associated Press at the time, so I had a little bit of a buffer, but then I could start looking at places to find voiceover work. There are audition sites, for instance, that you audition for projects that people put out. That puts you into a big pool. There are sites like Upwork and there are sites like Fiverr, which bring the work to you for a commission. And there's direct marketing. I had no clue how to do that. At all, none. So I'm going straight into the idea of self-employment with no real idea of how to be self-employed. So that's kind of where it started. And somehow, some way, I'm still here. So I've been very much learning as I do.
And thank goodness you are still here. I'm very pleased that you are. And I'm very glad, that we've met. And I know we've done some work together. So that's really exciting. And what a fascinating background. It hasn't taken too long to get there. I've had far longer conversations than this for people to get from where they started to where they are now. So that's been, don't worry about that. It's absolutely great. I want to go back to the fact that you picked Accenture. You clearly did not get very far in the top list of places to work. I'm going to assume probably first page. What was it that didn't work out at Accenture? I know you're obviously young, lots going on, but what was it that just didn't click for you?
To be honest with you, I don't think my attitude was right, as, the fact that picking a career literally out of like, okay, what do I want to do? I have no idea. I'll try the corporate world. So before that, I was thinking that I was going to go and do opera and musical theatre. And that hadn't worked out in terms of I needed some money because I've been working at a call centre in Bristol for like a year and a half, and I was starting to get fed up with that. So it's like, okay, we could do the other bit. We'll do the music on the side and we'll do this. I went in with a group of extremely intelligent, motivated young people. There was a huge amount of information to absorb. But I also think that there's a thing of, how do you become a consultant? The job is management consultant. So you're consulting to a manager. Ideally, you should be adding value to a business, right? I had no business experience. I'd been selling second internet lines back in the day when you needed those to people through BT and trying to get them to have a website. Had no business experience to impart and no wisdom to give. So at this point, I was like sort of trying to learn a little bit about this. I don't think that their approach was brilliant either. For instance, they tried to teach people had code. I could not code. There was a load of sequences of curly brackets and had to be placed in a kind of like a Tetris formation. And this, I think, was Java or C++ back in the day. Either way, it was impossible. I couldn't do it. So I tried, gamely, and failed at that. So we were looking at places to do. What they often have, like analysts do, is test things. So you go into a bigger project. I went into a project for Sainsbury's. They were rolling out Sainsbury's self-checkout machines. I spent hours scanning frozen peas through a checkout machine until it broke. And that was like, so that you could do like 263 packets of peas before the self-checkout machine would say, no more. That's enough. We're all peed out. I'm just wondering, I was also trying to think of like, what scenario, who is buying this many peas for them to have found that this is what it takes to create an error. And I just found it a bit soul destroying. And you would get assigned to do projects would maybe last 1 or 2 months. You never really felt like I had a purchase on really what was going on. I'll be honest. I didn't really understand exactly what was going on. And therefore, I couldn't really help. And you were one of a great many people. It was the start of the dot-com, but this is 2002 to 2004 I was there. So there's the dot-com boom is going on. There were a lot of people were coming in. So they had a lot of graduates and they didn't have the time to train you all individually. So I think that there were some people who perhaps like hit the ground running or found their niche in coding or found their niche in other sides of the business. But it wasn't something that at that time worked for me at all. I'd actually sort of be quite interested to see what it would be like to do it now. Now, I feel like I might be able to add something to someone else's business. But at that point, I didn't know. And I was very much lost and it didn't work.
If anyone from Accenture is listening, please contact James Brown for management consultancy.
Oh, don't. No, please don't. Don't waste your money. It's I'm really quite much happier to.
It's interesting because you mentioned then about opera.
Yeah.
And musical theatre, which is obviously very voice driven.
Yes.
So from that young or younger age, was it something you had ever thought about?
I was looking for my thing. I was looking for, I think like many of us do, I was trying to find something that I was good at. I was trying to find something that I enjoyed. There were, it was never athletic, never particularly sporty. You're a young man trying to find something, a place to fit in, only child as well. So what could I do that was sociable and interesting, and I felt I was decent at. And, I was quite a good singer. I enjoyed the acting, and there were musical theatre groups. Something that I did was called the Plymouth Youth Music Theatre Group, which was a show that was put on in the summer at the Plymouth Theatre Royal with something that was back then called the Young Company. And there were lots of kids from the age of about 12, 13 to 19, 20, I think was the oldest. And it was fabulous. It was brilliant. It was just a huge it changed my life, actually, going from being, very insecure to finding something that you felt like you belonged for the first time. And that is, it's nice to think you carve your own path and everything, but it's also quite nice to feel like, you're part of a group at the first time. And that was wonderful for me. That helped me enormously socially from the normal teenage massive awkwardness. But that was, that was formatively very useful. So yes, I was using my voice at that point. You love the drama, you love the idea of putting on a show, and that kind of went into university. Having had that experience, I then did a lot more of those shows at uni, and moving into opera, got trained in classical singing as well. But I also like to drink and smoke, and and I liked to go out a lot.
Yeah.
At that point, proved to be more important for me than giving that up and focusing on developing music. In the end, I didn't want it enough. Is the simple truth. Because for that sort of thing, you realise now that you have to sacrifice that.
I understand that, and I think yes, I remember back at that similar sort of time at uni myself, thinking, I quite like drinking, quite like smoking. In fact, I was talking to one of the kids about it yesterday, and I can't remember how it came up in conversation. But I said, actually, I kind of avoided uni when I didn't have to. And some of our lecturers would even say, should we go to the pub for a lecture? And that took over. I remember more drinking time at university than necessarily learning time. I passed my degree very well. So
didn't even be close.
I did quite well. So, but yeah, drinking and smoking is probably not the best past habit for a singer or a wannabe singer, or
No,
indeed a voiceover artist, but those
no.
days are long behind us. And then Russia, obviously, Russia must have been a very interesting place. And as you say, that to fly 8 hours and still be in the same country for all those time zones without passing any sea
Yeah.
must have been that's mind blowing, really. I don't think it's so hard to comprehend that when you think about that distance. Tell us some more about that, because I know we've obviously talked about it before, but what was the most interesting piece of documentary that you filmed while you were in Russia?
Did two really interesting pieces, 13, which Russia has compulsory military service. This takes on a whole other light, in with recent years. But back then, it was if you're a young man between 18 and 27, you are supposed to do 1 year. I think it was still 1 year at that point. It used to be 2, but then they changed it to 1 year in the military. So you go off and there is, like many things in Russia, ways to avoid this. But if you are poor, mainly, you kind of have to do it. So you go off and you join, you get your papers, you get conscripted into the army normally, or the Air Force, or one of the services. And I was in something called the VDV, which is the equivalent of the paratroopers for the UK. And they consider themselves to be an elite regiment. And these conscripts were training bloody hard. And it was just fascinating. I in order to sort of get in there and see what it was like, I got myself into very good shape. Certainly is the best shape I can remember being in the last 20 years. I'm not in bad shape now, but before that I was not in good shape at all. But I was twice the age of everyone there. I was in my mid-30s and they were all 18, 19 and 20. So yeah, you still have to do a lot of keeping up. But it was fascinating. You got to see what the regiment is like to go and live in a barracks for essentially a year, and the escape that a lot of these young men have. And you have to be aware also that you are getting probably a filtered version of some of the truth, because it was unlikely that someone was going to say, "Oh my God, I'm terrified and I want to, I'm just desperate to go home." But you did get stories of people saying that this has given me some hope of coming out of a very, very deprived area and a very, very deprived place. And I'm learning skills here that I wouldn't have had the chance to do otherwise. So, this has saved me from going down a dark path. And they do get you into pretty outrageously good shape. And you do get trained up to use various vehicles and become proficient with weapons and go on some fairly exciting adventures. That I wonder, of course, like how many of those kids now went over to Ukraine, which is a whole other, thought process. But back in the day, 12 years ago, that wasn't, no one really thought they would ever go to war.
No.
They said that they would be ready to go.
Yeah.
Whether they were or not, I don't know. So that was fascinating to see what the sort of things that they go through, because of course national service here was 70 years, I think, since they had it compulsory here. That was very, very interesting. I did a lot of cultural trips where I went all the way around the country, and you learn about areas of Russia that you never really knew existed. For instance, there's a place called Kalmykia, which is internationally renowned for its chess champions. And the president of Kalmykia was so enamored of chess that he basically set up this enormous federation there and tried to train Russian chess champions out of Kalmykia. I met him, we talked about chess. And then you also have, in the far east of Russia, there's Azerbaijan, which is a Jewish republic in Russia. And there are the more, of course, you go into Asia, you have people with very strong descent from Genghis Khan. So you're going into places in the middle of Siberia like Yakutia, where it can get down to minus 65 or minus 70 at some point. People live in these areas still. I went to a place called the Pole of Cold, which is the coldest inhabited place on Earth, and did a rally from Yakutsk, the capital of Yakutia, which is pretty sure it is the biggest republic in Russia. It's huge. It's in Siberia. So there's Siberia, just another absolutely enormous area, but with these incredible continental climates that go from minus 70 up to like plus 45, plus 50 in the summer. And that was fascinating. So, and you learn about the lifestyle. It's sort of incomprehensibly harsh lifestyle. Very, very difficult. and these very, very hardy people whose first language is Yakut. It's not It's not Russian.
Okay.
And so they still retain their very, very strong links to the indigenous population there from centuries ago.
It's incredible, isn't it, to think how large it is. Again, you talk about that flight, but when you think that it spans that whole space between here and Japan,
Yeah.
it's just mind blowing. So to find those pockets of people, and it must be fascinating. And I guess it makes a cold day here seem, positively balmy when it's that cold.
Yeah. When I arrived in Moscow, I arrived late August 2005, and the summer was just fading. But that first winter was apparently a particularly cold winter for Moscow, and it went down to -30, -35, and you had the sensation. I never forgot it, because you breathe in, and the inside of your mouth starts to freeze, and then the hairs in your nose start to freeze, and it's this very, very unusual situation and the weather is beautiful. It doesn't rain for months because it's just snow, you see. So it's dry, completely dry. So you get the winter, which is completely dry, but you can't be outside for more than a few minutes. You have the whole ritual of putting on your 6 different layers once you leave the house, and your big winter boots and your overcoat, and then you take everything off the moment you come in, because the heating in Russia is on for 6 months at a time, 7 months at a time. The government turns it on, the government turns it off. So and it's on 24 hours a day. It's this other slightly crazy thing that you have the buildings, the Soviet blocks especially, are all centrally heated as they go on. So everyone wanders around in their pants and their t-shirt for months at a time, because it's just completely toasty warm. It costs about p, because obviously oil just bubbles up through the ground, and it's on all the time. So you're always inside, very, very tasty warm. Every place has, there's no putting your coat on the back of a chair. Okay, there's always a cloakroom. It always goes in there. Your big boots normally come off at the door. That's an interesting thing, is that habit of taking your shoes off before you go in, because of course otherwise you tramp in snow.
Yeah.
It goes on the carpet or goes on the wood. It's just horrible. And I've kept that habit ever since. My shoes just don't go on inside anymore. It just feels weird for me to walk on a carpet like that. You know what I mean? And it's just so funny things that you absorb. But yeah, I think most people, of course, when they think of Russia historically, think of European Russia. They don't realize that actually the vast majority of Russia is in Asia.
Yeah.
And there's a forest the size of Europe.
It's crazy, isn't it? I honestly, and I have some. So my brother did a lot of work in Kazakhstan, so I have some kind of understanding and sapling of how far it spans in the different cultures, but nothing really. And certainly those sort of places, I think most people just have no concept that it's even out there. And I think with the present situation, we see very much that European Russia. And it must be quite hard to think you spent so much time there to see what's happening now. And obviously, as you said, your wife is Russian. Must be quite difficult. I don't want to get into the politics of it all because it's not what it's about, but it must be quite difficult to see that.
No, it's very hard. It's gone from being, I was able to get a flight from London to Moscow for a couple £100 to direct, to now it's to a third party country, but to Moscow, it's almost always over £1,000. It's very expensive, which, it's an unfortunate situation, and I feel very, very sorry for the Russian people as a whole, because it drives a great wedge between, even with families. A lot of people obviously left the country years ago, and I feel sorry for my sons, because I have 2 half Russian sons who are denied the easy access to their Russian family. There's only me and my dad here. I was the only child of 2 only children, but my wife has a large extended family, and a much younger extended family as well, because her parents were relatively young when she was born, just in their early 20s. So my sons should be able to have that easier access to their extended family, and it's very hard. It makes it hard. It makes it like a real kind of sacrifice to get that money together to either get them over to us or over to there, and it's a real shame, because there's so many wonderful aspects of the culture that I want them to access, and I want them to have, and it's very sad.
And it must be, that culture must be so huge and so diverse, considering the size of the country, as you already touched on.
Yeah.
To have, so many different types of people, descendants across that vast space.
Mm.
You speak Russian, I know. The children? They're older.
My eldest actually can switch into it when he wants to, and he knows that obviously people aren't going to react to him in English. So
Yeah.
if he's out there, like most kids with nice spongy absorbent minds, it's wonderful to drop them into a different language, and you find how quickly they pick it up and use it. It doesn't take long. So yeah, his Russian is decent. He has lessons here every week, twice a week. So we keep that going. His mum speaks to him in Russian.
Yeah.
So he won't use it unless he has to use it, but he will reply, for instance, to his mother in Russian when she speaks to him in Russian.
Yeah.
And that is good. So hopefully that will develop and he will have that bilingualism. Boys apparently find this bilingualism more difficult than girls. I don't know what this is. I don't have girls. It's apparently if you have daughters, they are with different nationalities parents. They pick up the bilingualism easier. So boys are a bit more.
I'm happy to trade you some girls to train in Russian if you like. That's fine. If you can get more than a grunt from them, then that's about as bilingual as we get in this household. I'm afraid is a teenage grunt.
Teenage. Well, I mean, we'll go for the in 5 years' time.
We'll see how that works out. Do you use the Russian, and has that influenced how you create some of the characters that you use in your art?
The great thing about VO is that there are lots of different genres for it. At the end of the day, we're creating stories. So what we want to do with a commercial is, of course, provoke the person who's listening to it or hearing it in order to take action. Do we do that by making them smile? Do we do that by grabbing their attention? Do we do that by taking them on a journey? That's something that journalism training, in my case, really helps with. You get used to speaking to a camera. You get used to commanding people's attention, hopefully in a way that makes them either not want to change the channel and makes them want to listen to you until the end. It's also more and more important. People's average view time for certain things becomes important. So again, you have to be able to command people's attention for a relatively long period of time in certain circumstances. In others, in short commercials, you are doing it in 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 minute. On the radio, you get what you call a 15-second, 30-second are very common on the local radio especially. So you have to be able to grab. So that's why you kind of have a lot of adverts like this, you know. So because it's a voice that immediately sort of gets in your ear. You may not even particularly like it, but it is focus grabbing. We call it the local radio voice for a reason, because people do tend to jump into it. It's a bit stereotypical, but it's one of the things that hasn't really changed. In terms of character creation, sorry, to get back to your original question. Yeah, it's important, very important for video games. You have to think about, you couldn't get away these days with doing a bad job on it. You have to be your voice actor. You can't just, for instance, read the lines, and because the audience is too sophisticated, they won't accept it from their games. There's too many good games with excellent quality acting out there to get away with being able to just fudge it at this point. And it shouldn't be. It's more and more immersive. You know, you're talking about an industry that makes Hollywood look like a tuppenny bit great grandma would have said in comparison. But yeah, just the billions and the billions and the billions that go into simply game development, or something like Grand Theft Auto 6, which is the great big release. I think it's coming out in November, but that's been 12 years, countless billions. They expect to recoup that very, very quickly. And so it just tells you that the sheer level of investment now, it would not go out unless it's perfect. So you have to be able to develop believable characters. You have to be able to empathize with your character. You have to make sure that the audience believes who you are, that the person that they're playing with is somebody real, that they have real lives, whether that's an NPC, non-playable character on the side in your medieval village, or one of the main antagonists or protagonists for your end-of-level boss. I tend to play quite a few evil characters.
No comment on that whatsoever. It's so interesting because I think it's easy to forget and probably not even think about it really, how big a market it must be, because it's everywhere. You talk about local radio, talk about TV, but games, I know when we first started talking, it wasn't necessarily something that I would automatically go to as a voiceover actor might be there. I don't know. It's just not on my radar. What other areas do you cover, and what else is included in the vast realm of voiceover?
So, my main two are corporate and commercial. So corporate might be, for instance, an explainer video, a whiteboard video, where you're explaining your concepts. You have a product that you need that you're trying to get your audience to use correctly. A lot of people invest now in video to build up know, like, and trust with their community. And the more ways for them to make use of the products or understand the company or understand the people behind the company, video is wonderful for that. So those different videos need to be explained, need to be produced in such a way that they resonate again with the audience. Voiceover is great for that. If you have high quality pictures, you want high quality audio to complete the picture, basically. I do a lot of brand films where someone's, when they're outlining their vision, those are another great way of introducing a company within 90 seconds. A lot of websites that you'll notice will have that as the first thing that you see. Showreel videos, of course, are fantastic ways of getting exactly what you can do in front of your audience very quickly. So there's lots of different corporates styles that can be from anything as dull, don't call it dull, but a concept like sometimes you have to have videos for compliance. Sometimes you have to have health and safety. You have to make sure that you're looking after your employees. And I do a lot of health and safety. And again, it's important that that information is retained by the audience. You don't get sued and nobody dies. Probably, flip that order.
Quite important.
Yeah, very important. So those are very popular, and they have to be done in a way that is not putting the audience to sleep. So your job is to make sure that they don't do that. Commercials tend to be snappier. Commercials can be more fun. They, again, depending on the brand, can be completely iconic. Think of the Guinness ads off the top of your head. Going back to 20 years, and the Surfer advert, gosh, maybe 30 years, for instance, the one that immediately flips into my head, and that's a voiceover behind the black and the white with the here's to you, Ahab, here's to your dream. That one, minimal but very powerful.
So how long would it take to make that? How many takes would you have to do as the voiceover artist to make such a short clip?
It really varies. It's always a good idea, I think, to give the client some variety, because they may have an idea of how they want it to go, and you follow that idea in your direction. If you're self-directing, a lot of voiceover now is self-directed. So I do everything here. This is my studio. There's the microphone there that I'm speaking into right now, and I do almost everything here on my own, without a director present. Sometimes we'll do director sessions like this, where you would be the director and you would be telling me, like, I want you to do it like this, or I want it to sound like this, and we would run through it like that. And that's a great way of getting the end product kind of exactly how the client wants it, because they can hear you do it live. You think about the audience, you think about what is the message here, what are you trying to convey, what's the best way to get that across, and then you might try that in a few different ways. Sometimes you can do something completely off the wall and give that to the client as a way of, okay, I know you didn't ask for this necessarily, but this was me having a bit of fun with it. They don't have to use it. Sometimes it sparks that extra bit of imagination, and they say, thank you very much. That's, actually works really, really nicely. And that often can be the way when you're doing an audition between winning a job and losing it, because if you give something different to what everyone else does, then that indicates that you offer something different, which is, of course, important. There are a lot of people with a British received pronunciation voice out there. So I have to differentiate myself in different ways. So whether it's my journalism background that is something that I say I can hold these people's attention, or I can do an interview style for you, or I can make sure that I have the authority that will make your audience believe that what you are telling them is true, and I'll convey that for you, as opposed to just sounding like a sort of middle-aged posh bloke from the home counties, because that there's too many of people who sound like that now.
And I presume it's a very crowded space of people doing it, and maybe even post-COVID. I guess it was a fairly easy thing to do, stuck from home, create a studio and get going.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of people got a mic and got some scripts and gave it a crack, and more power to them. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But like most things, if you want to do it successfully, you have to, you should be looking to consistently improve. You should be looking to train. You should be looking to making sure that you are aware of the latest fluctuations in the market and what's resonating with people. Conversational voiceover is very important at this point. You can't sound like what you might have, you have like back in the day from the old BBC type and announcer type voiceover of come now down to this shop and buy this and everything is great and we'll give you 48% off. Right, now, go! Whereas that was what you used to hear quite frequently, especially on big American-style adverts. But now, it might be Bob saying like, you know what, I fancy something from B&Q. What should we go and get? Oh, this looks interesting. We'll pick that up. Oh, this screwdriver, cool, crops, hope I don't hurt my thumb. And that is more relatable. So it's something that people are much more demand much more of these days. Something that makes you sound like you are that person's friend down the pub and you're having a chat with them rather than you're talking at the audience, because that tends to not create the sort of bonds that you want with your customer these days.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think back to your early career in journalism, documentary making, do you think you ever imagined yourself, A, being a voiceover artist and B, having your own business?
No, I really didn't. I was in a period where I was looking to get out of Russia, I'll be honest, for a while before I did. I had no idea what I was going to do. I applied to various different companies here, like Sky and CNN, to get anywhere. And it was really worrying. I felt very stuck. And I never, ever thought that I would be able to run my own business. I just didn't think it was, I thought, well, don't you have to start this from your 20s or something? I didn't think it was a possibility at all until it was. That was the idea of, I think it's like, when you learn a little bit about it, like you're going to, even though I'm not a member anymore, you go to BNI and you meet a group of other small business people and you speak to people who are in the same boat as you are. They're trying to fashion something often out of nothing. And they're learning techniques about, okay, well, what do we do here? How do we get customers? How can we add value to this person? How can we solve a problem for them? What do we need to do? And you, at this point, like, okay, well, can I put something out on social media that makes people think, okay, I hadn't thought about that necessarily, but that might be useful. Can you email somebody with something relevant to their, I hate to talk about pain points, but I suppose, are you touching on those and making yourself like a solution for somebody? We have to be somebody's solution if we're going to succeed, and we have to differentiate ourselves in a way that makes us stand out in a sea of wide competition. This is, for me, but there are a lot of voiceovers out there, so I have to make sure that my work speaks for itself, or people speak for me with testimonials, or that I'm innovating in my marketing and I'm reaching out to the right people. I'm having face-to-face conversations with people. I find that helps. You get to, in my business, you are the product. So if people like you, if they feel like once they've met you, this is somebody I would have representing my brand, that helps. And you constantly have to learn. You have to navigate things, and sometimes you have to pivot. It's just like there's September is normally a very, very busy month in VO. This September, it's not been very busy at all. So I have to think about why that is. Is that a change in the market at the moment? Is AI having more of an impact than perhaps I might have thought it would do? But my job then is to think about how I get around that and who do I reach out to and how I navigate that. One of the great things about having done this now for 3 years is that even though I know that there are occasionally lean months, it's not, you don't make a great fortune with this, but of course, the ceiling is really determined by you and who you reach and how well you do the work. I don't feel lost anymore now. I feel that even if voiceover died, I don't think that I would have to, for instance, go and get a 9-to-5 job again, or go into I think I would be able to fashion something else. And it's nice to have that feeling, because if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I would have said, no, there's no way. I don't have the slightest idea of how to grow a business or how to get customers and maintain and retain customers and make customers feel special. I don't know how to do that. I do feel I can do that now. And that has been a huge learning curve and a great feather, I think, in my cap. I'm very proud of the fact that I've got to that point where I feel like that resilience is there.
As you should be. And I think that's a great revelation to understand that you can, if it was all to go wrong, if you needed to, you could actually find, and as you say, fashion something else to move forward and start over again. And I think that for people watching, I think that's really important to understand is that you've built something you never thought you could, you've built it, it's growing. And if it all goes wrong, there is still something else that you can do. You couldn't go back to the 9 to 5. You wouldn't necessarily need to go back. You've carried on and you built it. What advice would you give to anybody who is looking to go out on their own and start a business?
Have some money put aside if you can. If it's not thrust upon you, try and do it. Try and make sure that you have at least 3 months savings set up so that in those initial months, you aren't getting to that point of desperation. That will help. The pressure will come off a little bit. But at the end of the day, the only thing that we have is time, and we have finite time. So I think that you have to think about, are you prepared to stay in a role that you don't necessarily like, and then look back and think, I should have done something different, but now I'm too old? Or do you want to think, I get up and I do a job that, or I'm in control of something that I enjoy and that is working for me and my dream and my family rather than someone else's. That's quite a powerful thing as well, that you are the one in charge of your own destiny as opposed to working to make someone else's dream come true. I really like that feeling. I didn't like many of my bosses. I like being the one who's the buck stops with me. I really like that. That makes a huge difference to my self-esteem and my feeling of, who I am. And I'm the one shaping my destiny as opposed to someone else. You can just put a hand up and say, no, that's it. Do not go any further. That's it. If you're in a family business, someone's family business, you work for them. That's at some point, that's as far as you're going to be able to go. Just as simple as that, isn't it? So,
and that's hugely powerful to have that freedom to be the one in control of your own destiny. I think speaks volumes. And anyone listening who's stuck, who wants to get out, should really, as you say, think about that. To have that control, you are the one who is, yes, it's hard. You have bills to pay. It's not always straightforward. You already touched on it. Income doesn't always come in, but you have the ability to do it. And ultimately, you are the one in control. And I think to me, it is absolutely huge. That's why I do what I do.
And you're also you're developing so many new skills. There comes a point, I think, in many jobs where you are working, you're on the tools, you're working in the business. You stop learning when you're running your own business. If you can't stop learning, you have to keep abreast of things. You have to keep trying new things, and all these things that you're doing, whether you're building up a social media presence, whether you're learning how to market an email list, whether you're thinking about techniques that you can to evolve your marketing that will make people, take the action that you want them to take. Those are skills that you might not necessarily have had before, but when you develop those, they're incredibly important and powerful for you, but they're also very marketable for other people as well. It's not just, you go through this journey and you realize that you have a set of skills that you didn't have before because you've had to develop them. And those can be something else that you think, oh, well, I can actually, I did this, I could manage this for somebody. I could go and do another sort of slight tangent is the voiceover with AI coming in. That takes off some aspects of the lower end of voiceover, but that has led to a demand for what they call user-generated content, which is people filming on their phones, talking about various different products. And again, having that authenticity of the fact that you're being spoken to by an actual human. So being on camera becomes more important, being able to be personable, being able to sort of defend your business and show that you are a real human being working on a real product in real life. That kind of connection becomes more important. So you learn how to use your phone as a camera, you learn how to edit, you learn how to mix and capture. And those are very valuable skills that those skills
are so valuable. And actually that comes to the point you mentioned, that if it was all to go wrong, if things didn't work out, you could take those skills, repackage them and move to something different and develop and pivot. And I think, again, that's so important for people to understand that the skills you get from having your own business are completely transferable. You take the skills you started with in early career, you build a business, you have more skills, and you can go on and further educate yourself and others. And again, that's so, so important for people to know and understand. You talked
Absolutely.
about AI. Obviously, we can generate pretty much anything, especially voiceover. And you talked about the lower end then. How is AI affecting your business and how will it affect it moving forward? And I know the answer, but is there still a need for human voiceover?
So AI is improving all the time, or almost certainly at the very, very beginning of the limits of what AI can do. It is able, you can produce AI voices. Those AI voices are improving. You can produce AI films. You can produce art with AI. You can produce cartoons. The thing is that it's my little tag, which is a play on James Brown, is the voiceover with soul. But the whole point of producing some form of art is that it has a bit of your soul in it, that there's that it is something that's drawn from your experience, from your heart, from your dreams, even from your, it's not cold, it's not unemotional, because a computer at the end of the day will only do what it is told. It cannot think for itself. It is other people's experiences are telling it what to say back to you and it's never loved. It's never experienced grief. It's never experienced joy. It doesn't have those emotions to draw on. It doesn't have that reality. It is an artificial piece of software. So it is incapable of producing the feeling that makes something tangible, I believe. Like the connection between human beings is something that goes beyond something, a flat kind of, I say the words and then you do what I tell you. It's not that. You have to feel it. You have to believe that the person saying the words to you in the advert or saying the piece of drama to you or holding in a video game, holding the body of their murdered parent or their murdered child, or it is that is real, that's coming from a place of truth. Can a machine do that? I don't think it can, because it has never experienced anything to give it that depth of feeling. It can't do it. It's like people will say that AI democratizes creativity, and I suppose it gives people more tools to use in order to create something. But again, do you want a film that's created with, put two elves together and let them fight and off they go to this land, and that's it, without the idea of, drawing that character, seeing that character come alive underneath your pen, and then having that go on to the wonderful movies of Pixar and Disney. There's something there. Actually, there is an AI movie now. I think it's called Critters that's coming out soon, which is apparently completely 100% generated by AI. I don't know how that's going to be. I will watch it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's terrible. To be honest with you, I'm prepared to be surprised, but I don't think that you can create something like that without love. I really don't. And I don't think if you don't put a bit of yourself into it, if it is all simply a series of prompts, I can't see how that will resonate with an audience. I think that fortunately we are beyond that a bit as human beings.
I think you're absolutely right.
Makes us human, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is that human connection, as is with everyone. I've had some conversations recently around human connection, because obviously now, especially on social media, on LinkedIn and other platforms, AI is always present in the imaging, in the copy,
Comments.
in the comments. And that's exactly where I was going. And it's been really nice, actually, because I've made some really good and genuine connections with other human beings outside of these AI comments. And I'll tag a few people in this because I think they'll be very interested to hear your take on that. And you're right, you can't have it without that soul, without that emotion, because otherwise it just becomes so plain. And you're right, it's prompts after prompts after prompts. And I think it has a place, don't get me wrong. I think there is a place for it. It's here, it's building, it's growing. But I think you can never replace that human contact, which is so vital for all of us. And conversations like this would not be the same if I was talking to AI James Brown. It just isn't. It's never going to be.
Are you talking to AI James Brown, David?
Well, I may be. And then I've just completely ruined the whole of the conversation.
Myself. Not yet. Not,
all in good time. You can have multiple James Browns doing many different
yeah,
things for you.
absolutely. Just get out of the cloning machine, send him off.
Just hit play and away you go. What's next for you? What's the exciting projects coming up? What's next year hold?
This year's been much more acting-based work, which has been exciting. I've got to play some fantastic characters in various different genres, from kid-friendly audio dramas to slightly terrifying end-of-level bosses in indie games. I've got to do more audiobook work, which is a genre that actually I think is going to be one of the ones that is very much more AI proof, but we call it the marathon of voiceover. But for those long, in-depth stories, it becomes much, much harder for AI to not cock up, to be honest with you. There's too much for it, too much where it goes wrong, too much where it doesn't work, it doesn't intone correctly. It doesn't work. So I've been working on a couple of different genres. I'm doing a fantasy novel at the moment called Shadow of the Soul Blade. I can name drop that. That'll be out fairly soon by a very talented American author called Jay Rowland, doing a couple of romantasy pieces. It's great. They quite like voices like mine in romantasy around the 18th century. Entanglements there. So those are fun. And I would expect that may become a bit more of a focus for me in 2026 and beyond. I think I've got any other sort of exciting projects. A couple of commercials coming out, which I can't talk about, unfortunately, because I'm under NDA. But it's been a good year, and it's been a year where areas have developed, like I said, like the games and the audiobooks, which I might not necessarily have thought were going to be a big part of 2025, but which have come to the fore. And that's lovely, because that lets me, explore my acting side, and that's one of the great loves of my life. So being able to use that more frequently and hopefully effectively is a great joy for me.
And it's so nice to hear that you have obviously your own business and you're able to develop and build as you want. You have that freedom to do it. And it's probably not where you thought you were going to be. Slightly different genres, slightly different things to do. And I just think that's so exciting. And I wish you all the best for 2026. It sounds like it's going to be a very exciting time with lots going on. I don't think I could have an episode with you and not ask for a couple of demonstrations of your amazing voice. I hear you on the advert, and it's great because Stacey and I'll be watching TV suddenly, and we're like, is that James? The shark advert is one of the ones that I know you've done that pops up every now and then on TV, and I think, is that James? Is it not James? So can you just give us a couple of the characters that you've played recently, a couple of the bits that you've done? Just, I think, it would be great for people to see the amazing work that you can do.
So, Bad Guys. This is an end-of-level boss I did recently for a game called My Monsters, called the Lord of Loneliness. And the Lord of Loneliness is a very sad, exhausted, and a deeply unpleasant apparition who wants to drag you away from the world to be lonely and miserable like him. So what does he say? He says things like, "I know you, traveler. The bitter, sick part of loneliness inhabits your spirit. This dark desire to surrender to the void. Abandon yourself to feel worthless and unbound by life or time. Give up this search while you still can. Abandon that little monster of yours. Better that we remain this way, each to our own corner, ruminating in our loneliness. You have been warned."
Bravo. That's brilliant. Oh, that's brilliant. I love it. So, such a talent to have. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Bit of Bad Guys, but yeah, there's...
That's a podcast trailer right there. That's just the bad guy. Final question then to you, James. What's the dream job? What would be the most amazing job to get handed down?
I think I would love to do a bigger BBC documentary. Recently done more. I've done more documentary work this year. Done quite a fun series come up on Taiwanese food, but to do an investigative BBC documentary, that would be, because that's like, again, one of the first loves with journalism was doing these longer pieces. And I would love to get back into doing that again. A main protagonist, I think, in a AAA game would be insane. Would just be insane, because that's just an absolute dream. And obviously you get access to an enormously loyal group of fans who enjoy that. So it's a fantastic springboard as well. If you're able to get one of those characters going, that then can develop into a whole new world of potential opportunities. And it's just enormous fun because there's such well-crafted pieces of work these days. The gaming world is endless, from hugely talented indies to these giant, games by Rockstar and beyond. So landing one of those, fingers crossed, down the line would be fantastic.
Well, here's to it, and here's to the future. Here's to 2026 and landing those big games. I think it would be fantastic to see, and I look forward to seeing how everything develops. James, thank you so much for your time, for sharing all about your journey, and of course the fantastic live demo that I thrust upon you of your bad guy. I wish you all the best moving forward. Thank you, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you.
Well, thanks very much, Dave. It was really nice. Thank you for having me. I hope it's been interesting. It's really nice to talk to you, and enjoyed it very much.
Absolute pleasure, James. Thank you ever so much.